Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome once again to another Torah review. My name is Zurishaddai. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Brooklyn section of New York City, or in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, giving all glory to the Supreme Intellect of the Universe, Yehudah, and giving due respect to the leader and teacher of our congregation, even Chief Prince Yariel Ben Yissaskar, and to all of the the members of the council, and to everyone. I greet you all early Shabbat Shalom Aleichem, everyone that's on the stream, and I pray that the Most High God will keep us all in good health and in good spirits. Praying that the Creator of heaven and earth be with us all. Today we'll be doing a Torah review. Now, last week there wasn't a particular portion in the sense of the sidrot, but there is a particular portion. Prince Zurishaddai, Nasik Zurishaddai will be going over something today, just to highlight certain points or to bring forth certain points that we might not be too privy to, or that we might have missed. All right, so with that, I'll introduce to you all one of my teachers, even Nasik Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
I'm doing great, And first of all, I'd like to give praise to the Supreme Intelligent Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Yitzchak, God of Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and due respect to the platform on Chief Prince Yariel, and also to the host, Chief Uziel, and to the princes, chief brothers and sisters, Maureen, the Kohanim, the rabbis out there, and visitors. I greet you all in the time of my forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and an early Shabbat Shalom. And I'd like to first start off with Adonai Supply Tita Piyagiti Atheaka. O Lord, and my mouth shall declare that praise. I thank D.C.B channel for an opportunity to be able to share some insights into different portions of our history and experience and our observance. Last Shabbat happened to be actually the 7th day of Chag HaMatzot, and which is the 7th day of Feast of Unleavened Bread. And what is interesting is that out of all the observance other than Shabbat, we encounter the observance of the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread more often than pretty much anything I could think of that we observe. So much so that, we look at, like most people in this country look for July 4th as the Declaration of Independence, and some Black folks look for Juneteenth, where all that information about the freeing of the so-called slaves in America, freeing up the slaves rather in America, they say emancipation, they was bringing that out. That was a little late getting through. But what I like to focus on is that they have different readings, that different the people that compiled the Sidra, compiled the books, canonized the books, and the rabbis, what we more commonly refer to as the rabbis of old, they the ones that come up with the Sidros, like I said before. They come up with Haftorahs, which one you read for this particular time and season. And interesting enough that through the whole month of Abi, which is another name that you might find for this particular month on our Hebrew calendar, which is Nisan, is that you find that as we look at it as a blessed month for the children of Israel, and also supposed to be a blessed month for all people around the world in that sense. Though the Creator went and was going to rescue Israel, the descendants of the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob down in Egypt, it was a declaration of independence for all mankind, in the sense that even the strangers invited to the service. I like to bring out one interesting point is that they read, we read about, I'll start with this point here first, what that's a comment, and not to be necessarily be taken literally, but to be considered in my talk. Last week, matter of fact, before I do that, I just shared some of the chapters that most people would have read, maybe last Shabbat, that follow a traditional rabbinical tradition. Not that I'm saying that I'm trying to make people follow a rabbinical tradition or anything like that. But if you're reading or using scriptures as it comes down to us, whether it's the Masoretic text or King James version of the text, we got to first ask and investigate what gives it that kind of authenticity, that we gauge our life by it. Is it simply because we like that? Because even gangs have a rule. They have their signs, they have their slang talk. But here we say this is one of the when we deal with the scriptures and we deal with the laws that's coming down from the Creator of heaven and earth to the prophet Moses, that we say we uphold the highest moral code of ethics ever given to man. And so, in most places, some places, they might have been reading from on the seventh day, since it was the seventh day, Exodus, the 13th chapter, 17th verse, all the way through the 15th and 20th. That what they would read on the seventh day. Now, I know that outside of Israel, some people observe an 8th day. I'm not going to spend much speaking on that now. Maybe if a question come up later on at another time, then I will address it. But in the land of Israel, and according to the book, that when Passover come in, you have 7 days of CHOKMAH, and I will elaborate on that a little bit within my talk. But I like to say at this point in time that the main theme was not just even our exodus out of Egypt, but actually one of the questions I like to share and allow and want people to think about is, why is it that we have 7 days of unleavened bread, whereas opposed to when a servant serves 6 years and 7 years go free? We got a reason. We know the 7th day of the Sabbath. We get reasons behind that. When we get to the sabbatical year, we have a reason for that that's given. When we get to the Yovel, there's a reason given. When we get to Sukkot, all Israel must dwell in booths 7 days and a reason is given. So now we have to explore and try to extrapolate a reason why 7 days unleavened bread, that feast only lasts that long. And that's just something to consider, because we didn't cry out for manna until a month later. We have the exact date when the Creator said that manna came down, which was the 2nd month, which I'm just going to speak on now, but we could look it up in the Exodus, the 2nd month and the 15th day of the month, when manna came down, when they're talking about manna coming down. So give or take a day, circle. But when it comes down to unleavened bread, and then when we go into the book of Deuteronomy, which I'm going to revisit in the 16th chapter and within my talk perhaps, is that it says you can eat unleavened bread 6 days, and then later on it says 7 days. So it says 7 days, then 6 days, then 7 days in the book of Deuteronomy. And so we say, well, okay, is it about the unleavened bread? And also in 40 years later, which we know the book of Deuteronomy is written by Moses, and that it's Moses who's elaborating on what was taught earlier. So you say, okay, what's also interesting is that only 40 years later, he called the matzah, the unleavened bread, the bread of affliction, which you read in the book of Deuteronomy. And you say, well, how come he didn't call it the bread of affliction 40 years ago? Why not? Why did the Creator didn't call it the bread of affliction 40 years ago? You know, those are some of the things. And normally, um, if most people get the connotation, say, oh, and say that matzah, unleavened bread, is the poor man's food. We know it's the food that you get on a hurry. That's for sure. We know it's done quickly, but not necessarily that it's a poor man's food, because what was on a showbread, the table of showbread, was 12 loaves, and they stay up there for 7 days, and then by week to week, and the priest would change it every week. Those 12 loaves that represented each tribe, and they had to eat that, and that was holy, and that was unleavened bread. So it's hard to conceive when Moses called it the bread of affliction in Deuteronomy 40 years later. And yet the priest in the early stage must have 12 loaves of showbread on the table from week to week. That's just something to consider. So now I would try to advance a reason. Not necessarily that I could prove it 100%. Just I would like to advance a reason. That in the beginning, there was the children of Israel wanted to go into the wilderness. And they wanted to go into the wilderness 3 days journey to sacrifice to the Creator. So we know the story. Pharaoh didn't allow them to go to the wilderness for that 3 days journey. Until after that, the plague of the death of the firstborn. And so during the plague of the death of the firstborn, after that, then Pharaoh and the Egyptians was urgent. They thrust them out of Egypt and said, go serve your God. Be out, go on for my people, and serve your God. So now they said 3 days journey. We read later on that Pharaoh himself was told that the Israelites are entangled in the land. And that they're not basically, and the Creator already.
13th chapter of what?
Exodus. Excuse me. Exodus.
Exodus chapter 13.
Yes. Let me see. I'll get the verse one moment. Okay. We're going to pick it up just around better yet. Sure. All right. Okay. We're going to pick it up in the 14th chapter. Excuse me. Pick it up in the
Exodus chapter 14.
Yes. All right.
On verse 1.
Yes.
Exodus 14, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And Yehudah spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel that they turn back and encamp before Pi-hahirot, between Migdol and the sea, before Baal-zephon, over against it, shall ye encamp by the sea. Pardo will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land, the wilderness have shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he shall follow after them. And I will get me honor upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts, and the Egyptians shall know that I am Yehudah. And they did so.
Keep on.
And it was told the king of Egypt that the people were fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned towards the people. And they said, what is this we have done, that we have let Israel go from serving us?
All right, let's stop right there. That 5th verse. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people were fled. Now, that's an interesting thing, and I'm on focus on just on that particular point, just for a moment. It said he put him out. It said he thrust them out. But he thrust them out at that time to do what? Not to go to Israel, but to go worship their God. And now it seems like they ain't coming back. So if you want a 3 days journey in the wilderness to serve your God, and I finally relent and let you go serve God, I'm rushing you on your way, and you got all kind of stuff and goods. You mean, so when they say they bought of the Egyptians, that brings another thing to mind. Pharaoh and them think that that stuff was come back, that you just want to use it for a moment. Them jewelry, that garment, everything you grab, they go out to worship your God, that's supposed to be coming back in their minds. That's why they urge it. Brings another perspective for him to be hard in his heart. I'm just saying, dealing with some kind of, another viewpoint to look at. What was going on in Pharaoh's mind? I sent these people to worship their God. I got them out of here because I had enough of this mess. And they done got all my people economy. They got all that. But I'm thinking they're coming back. But it said, but you notice it said they fled. It was told to Pharaoh that they fled. And he said, what we did. And let them go unescorted, unmonitored, with everybody. So now, 3 days. If they took 3 days already, that means they're already on overtime. And if they're on overtime, then Pharaoh got to cover 3 days up. So when Pharaoh overtake them, he had to cover the distance of 3 days to overtake them and catch up with them at full gallop. From looking at the story, we're thinking just they left a good ways out, several days off, or we just say they left a day and they right there tomorrow. No, but they get time to worship, time to be off, for you to realize that they fled, because you can't flee my door if I let you right out the door and tell you going out. So that brings part of the premise I'm trying to draw here is that, so in total was 6 days. They were 3 days journey, they had a little delay. Pharaoh them covering up 3 days. And then they catch up with them, and they in camp. And when they're in camp, the Creator kept, a dark cloud on one side and light to the Israelites, but they didn't come by each other all night. Once they enter the Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds, after the morning light, and come and said to him in the morning. And Pharaoh and them pursued after them. And then they came out of the Yam Suf, on dry land. And the waters crushed the Egyptians, the chariots, and the horsemen. That is 7 days. So it's the victory. It was started, the Exodus started, but it wasn't completed until your pursuers were dead and you on dry land, and you could witness their bodies on the shores that they're dead. So that's one comment and viewpoint on the 7 days of unleavened bread, because the full measure of the victory was not concluded. The full measure of that Exodus was not concluded. Now, when we count the Omer to a Shavuot, the purpose is not concluded. But the Exodus from Egypt was only concluded once we left and crossed and come out the Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds, on dry land, and the pursuers were dead. So hence, that's one viewpoint they give in reference to the 7 days of unleavened bread being that long. And in the book of Deuteronomy, think around the 8th verse, they call that 7th day, Shevi Azeret. That's what they call it, Shevi Azeret, which is the seventh day concluding. And it's used there in the book of Deuteronomy. And Azeret means usually like a conclusion. So it's used in the sense of a conclusion. So hence the 7 days. Now, I'd like to bring out also that the song that was sung, the victory song. So we're just going to go into the 15th chapter just a little bit, just a few verses, and I'm not going to spend much on that. The 15th chapter of Exodus.
Chapter 15 of the book of Exodus. From the top.
Yes, just from the top a little bit.
Exodus chapter 15, verse 1. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto Jehovah, and spoke, saying, I will sing unto Jehovah, for he is highly exalted. The horse and his rider have he thrown into the sea. Jehovah is my strength and my song. He's become my salvation. This is my God, and I'll glorify him, my father's God, and I'll exalt him. Jehovah is a man of war. Jehovah is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his hosts have he cast into the sea, and his chosen captains are sunk in the Red Sea.
Okay, all right there. In the part of 2, it says, this is become my salvation, and he can become my salvation. This is my God, and I will glorify him. Now, this song, when it says, then Moses, it says, then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord. Now, who wrote the lyrics? How was it Moses coming up with the lyrics? Because he started to sing it. And how do people know what the next word is? Or did he call and it's call and response? Call and response. Or he said a few lines and they ad-lib a few lines. So there's always a question about how was this song ever sung? And it's the first time you read about a song in scriptures. And it's a victory song. And yet they singing praises for destruction. But what's even more unique, well, I get to this after I deal with Miriam. Let's pick up the part when we talk about Miriam.
Verse 5.
Yeah.
The deeps covered them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Thy right hand, O Jehovah, glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Jehovah, dasheth in pieces the enemy. And in the greatness of thine excellency, thou overthrowest them that rise up against thee. Thou sendest forth thy wrath, it consumeth them as stubble. And with the blast of thy nostrils, the waters are piled up. The flood stood upright as a heap. The deeps were congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I'll pursue, I will overtake, I'll divide the spoil. My lust shall be satisfied upon them. I will draw my sword, and my hand shall destroy them. Thou didst blow with thy wind, and the sea covered them. They sank as lead in the mighty waters.
Okay, and now we're going to skip down to the 20th verse.
Verse 20. And Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam sang unto them, Sing ye to Jehovah, for he is highly exalted. The horse and his rider have he thrown into the sea. Okay,
now, that's another question. What was Miriam's song that she sung to him? It's not given clearly, other than that one little verse, that one little thing that she said, sing unto the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and the rider he had thrown in the sea. All right. She given a reason to sing, but we don't have the lyrics that was sung. And she led them in timbre. So that's one of those things that, you have a reason, but you're missing the lyrics. Here we got the lyrics from Moshe's song, but how it's implemented? Is it call and response, or some people ad-lib, or they repeat it after Moses? We're not sure. But what's even more interesting about the song, because they do a lot of, there's 2 songs. The Haftorah is in the book of Shemuel for that particular Shabbat on the 7th day. And it's come from Shimon, the 22nd chapter, Second Samuel, the 22nd chapter. I forget for those that might not be familiar with the terms I use. So Second Samuel 22nd chapter, that's the song that David sang for a victory song. Those are two songs of victory, besides that's of a liberation from a great power. Now, David sung his song because he had problem with Saul. They had problem with Philistine, different people. But the song, the lyrics of both songs, the one David sang, and the one that we read in the book of Exodus that Moses sang and the people sang, is people dying in tragic dying and liberation. But I'd like to bring out one more interesting point that I have here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it that good, but just in case people don't have it beforehand. I'll try to do my best to see if I can.
What is it? What is it that you want me to get?
At the Tikkun and at the Tikkun, the 15th chapter of the Psalm, the 15th chapter of Exodus. How it's written in some scriptures, in some books in Hebrew, Masoretic text is written. I don't know if you can see it as well, but it's written like this here. Yeah. So that song that Moses sang, it's written in a unique style.
All right, Psalms chapter 15.
No, not Psalm. It's the Exodus 15.
Exodus 15. Hold on, give me 1 second here.
Yes.
Let me see it.
I don't know if you can put it on the screen.
Exodus 15.
So I just hopefully.
All right, so do you want me to read it in Hebrew?
No. Just show it. I just need to show. Just to show the unique style.
You want me to show it? All right, give me a second here.
All right. Meanwhile, while he getting that, and then he'll be able to show you just to save time. It's written for those that might maybe see my copy. He might be able to put it up later on, but it's written in a unique fashion, and normally maybe you see it in a scroll. That's how it's written, in a fashion like this. All right, where normally you find stuff written in this particular fashion, Hebrew fashion. All right, and the unique ways it's made like if somebody, the letters is like, when you look at the wording in the letters, it's like brick, like a brick, somebody laying brick. So, and the way it's written, it's not quite written like that in your book. Most Masoretic texts are a little different. All right. This is where you'll find it in the scroll. The way I'm showing you right now. That's the way you will find it in the scroll, written like this here. This we call it. The book I have in my hand is called a Tikkun. For those that be trying to read Hebrew when they go out the scroll, because the script be a little different, and it's written in a block form. So the reason it's written in a block form is what it looked like somebody laying bricks. And what was our occupation? What was our job down there? Our job was making bricks. And how do people make bricks today and lay bricks today? They use a hole and a half. A hole and a half. You never see a building of bricks where it's a straight line going from one brick to like both ends meet all the way down, where it'd be a straight line, like a stripe or a box, a straight up even box. You find one brick overlaying another brick, a hole over half, a half over a hole. Not so much working on no pyramids or anything like that. Building store, we was working in brick. And the first time you read about people working in brick is at the Tower of Babel, man-made element. And anybody that builds know that when you use bricks, a brick and a half, making one brick overlay another brick, but not directly even. So it'd be a brick and a half and a brick. That's how buildings are built today when they use brick. They follow that same method because it has much more stability, less, much more fortified. And that's the way. So what we did, and it shows in that song, reminiscing what we actually did in the land of Egypt. What is also interesting, dealing with that particular song, is that bricks. When we talk about bricks, and the first incident we have is at the Tower of Babel, where man built made brick and built the tower. Sometimes something could be of a virtuous, a good use, a virtuous use, or it could be something for evil. The Tower of Babel was evil, and also what we was forced to do, that was the evil involved. When we was forced to work, and so it makes you think about an altar of God should not be built of hewn stone. For if you lift up your tool upon it, it'd be greatly polluted. So it's a song reminiscent also of the drudgery and the criteria that we had to deal with. When you're a slave, one of the things we had is spiritual death as a slave, no roots as a slave. And when a person have no roots, that's one of the things that when I came along as Israelite, say, what is your name? Where you from? What's your nationality? Slave mentality, not knowing where you're from. And if you don't know where you're from, it's hard to plan or plot your course of where you're going. So that's one of the areas here. Now, I also like to bring about the Passover again, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. I like to bring out something else to think about as well. And I'm at 12. And I point out that the Passover we observe, I'm going to bring out a few things right quick. So if I don't go into the book all the time, it's just to save time. All right. One of the things I like to bring out about the Passover is that we have a second Passover that was instituted. And we observed the first one in the wilderness, the second year. So we're going to go to the book of Numbers just one right quick, Chief. Let me see what chapter I got.
The book of Numbers?
Yes. Yeah, book of Numbers. We're going to go into that book just a moment, just for a few lines. And we're going to pick it up, I think maybe by around, I believe, 10th, maybe 10th. So let me just get my book. Look at it. Give me a moment just to save some time. The ninth chapter, ninth verse.
Numbers chapter 9, ninth verse. 9.
We're gonna deal with
from the ninth verse.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna go up to that first, but I want to.
From the beginning. All right.
Yes.
Numbers chapter 9, verse 1. Now Yehudah spoke unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the first month of the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, let the children of Israel keep the Passover in its appointed season. In the 14th day of this month at dusk, ye shall keep it in its appointed season, according to all the statutes of it, and according to all the ordinances thereof shall ye keep it. And Moses spoke unto the children.
Okay, that's good. That's good enough right there. All right, we know he delivered the message. All right, but it's showing you that it's 1 year after, that they left Egypt, that they're going to keep the second Passover. And it's the only Passover we read about throughout the 40 years in the wilderness, this particular Passover that they observed. We don't have no other record of that. And you say, well, why do the Creator have to remind us about our liberation? That's something to think about. Why do you have to be reminded to observe that? And he had commanded Moses to observe that. And those that, let's go a little bit further. Now we're gonna skip on down to the ninth verse, same chapter. Then I'll get back to that.
Verse 9. And Yehudah spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man of you or of your generation shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto Yehudah. In the second month, from the 14th day at dusk, they shall keep it. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. And they shall leave. Yes.
All right. They shall not leave, none of it until the morning. All right. So that's it. But matter of fact, go a little bit further, because I want to dispel some controversy too.
And they shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break a bone thereof, according to all the statute of the Passover, but they shall keep it. But the man that is clean and is not on a journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover, that soul shall be cut off from his people, because he brought not the offering of Yehovah in its appointed season. That man shall bear his sin.
Okay, all right, there. All right. All right. Now, I'm gonna bring up a few controversial issues at the end. A few things to make to consider. But now we don't have a second date to do Sukkot. We don't have a second date to do Shavuot. We don't have a second date for Yom Kippur. We don't have a second date for Yom Teruah. And we definitely never have a second date for Shabbat. Because when it's gone, it's gone. It's a whole new Shabbat. That cycle already came. So now, and we don't have a second date for the sabbatical year. We don't have a second date for the Yovel. So now it's just that important of observing the Passover. Now, last time I was speaking, when I was in the book of Wayikra, and this Shabbat, they're going to go back into the book of Leviticus, but they're going to deal with the Sidra Shemini. Now, in the book of Wayikra, we was reading in the early part in that Sidra about the different sacrifices that one bring up if they sin and stuff of that nature. Then in Saul, afterwards, we read about that in the next Sidra, and then in Leviticus, we read about what the priest's job is and what he's supposed to do and stuff of that nature. And then a few more sacrifices thrown in. But we have there's three sets of sacrifice. The ones that we read about and for sin offerings, burnt offerings. We have seven classes basically. Well, some may say 6 or 5, but 5 is defined in the book of Wayikra in the beginning. One of the things is asked with the Passover. I might be going a little bit ahead of myself, but I'm bringing this out now. Could theoretically, can we bring the sacrifice of Passover, when the temple is not standing? Theoretically. Now, I hope I made my question clear. All right. Theoretically, if the temple's not standing, would we still be able to bring a Passover offering? And I'll get back to that in a moment. I just want some of the people to consider that. And before we just get a quick answer. And now we had said the second Passover is if you're unclean by the day or on a journey. And if you don't keep the Passover, you have what they call, be cut off, the excommunication from your people. Like I said earlier, you never cut off from the Creator, you cut off from your people. All right. Now, understanding that, the second Passover, which would be in the second month, exactly 1 month, all you observe is the Passover night, at night. The lamb, the bitter herbs, and the unleavened bread. That's what you have in that second Passover. It's not about getting rid of the leaven in your house, in the neighborhood. You was missed the first one, and the Creator gave you an opportunity to make it up. Now, in the book of Chronicles, Second Chronicles, and I just like to bring out just a little bit of that. I'm gonna skip around just a little bit. It might be working you just a little bit, Chief. I know you can't get up in the morning, so I'm gonna be kind of brief in this area. So we go just Second Chronicles. No, before I even go to Second Chronicles, I want to bring Deuteronomy, the 5th chapter. Let me see where I want to go.
Deuteronomy chapter 5.
Yeah, 12 through the 15th verse.
Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 12. Hallelujah.
No, yeah, 12 yeah. Hallelujah. When you got it, just go ahead. Just save time.
6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is a Shabbat unto Yehudah thy God, and that thou shalt not do any manner of work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thine ox, nor thine ass, nor any of thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and Yehudah thy God brought thee out thence by a mighty hand and by an outstretched arm. Therefore Yehudah thy God commanded thee to keep the Shabbat day. Honor thy father and thy mother.
No, that's good. That's good right there. That's good.
That's good.
All right, that's good right there. All right. The reason I brought that chapter out is that to let you know that the Shabbat, they say we know the Shabbat, the Creator observed that. We know, when he created heaven and earth in Genesis. We also know, because see some creative work on that particular day. We also know that we're supposed to get refreshed on the Shabbat. We also know that we don't have no authority over our servants, our animals, on domestic animals on the Shabbat. But now, and 40 years later, Moses saying the Shabbat was instituted for us to observe because of our exodus from Egypt. So it's tied with the Pesach. So Passover is so important that here, 40 years later, Moses make the Shabbat as a reference and related to Passover, make Passover related to the Shabbat. We know Shabbat was first. So it's showing that this is the reason also to observe Shabbat on a weekly basis. And it says because you was bondsmen in the land of Egypt. That is something. So you're supposed to remember to keep the Shabbat. You got to remember that you was bondman in the land of Egypt. But yet you're not supposed to hate an Egyptian because you was a stranger in his land. Less severe. So that should send a message to people how important it is to observe the Passover when it comes.
Shalom, Prince, you still there? Shalom, shalom.
And I went from the top just a little bit.
All right, what did you tell me? Because you froze up for a little bit.
Oh, okay. I hope I didn't mess up too bad.
No, it was just for like 5 seconds.
Okay.
So I didn't catch what you said.
Okay.
What did you want me to go to?
All right, Second Chronicles, the 29th chapter.
Second Chronicles, the 29th chapter, first verse. It reads on this wise. Second Chronicles 29, verse 1. Hezekiah began to reign when he was 25 years old, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Abiah, and the daughter of Zechariah. And he did that which was right in the eyes of Yehoah, according to all that David his father had done. He in his first year of his reign, in the first month, opened the doors of the house of Yehoah and repaired them. And he brought the priests and the Levites and gathered them together into the broad place on the east, and said unto them, Hear me, ye Levites, Now sanctify yourselves and sanctify the house of Yehovah, the God of your fathers, and carry forth the filthiness out of the holy place. For our fathers have acted treacherously and done that which was evil in the sight of Yehovah our God, and have forsaken him, and have turned away their faces from the habitation of Yehovah and turned their backs.
Okay, now we're going to jump to the 17th verse.
Verse 17. It reads, Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify. On the 8th day of the month came they to the porch of Yehovah, and they sanctified the house of Yehovah in 8 days. And on the 16th day of the first month, they made an end.
Okay, all right there. So, 16 days. They're already doing this particular month. Mm-hmm. You know, so now they're already missed observing Passover on a prescribed season, an appointed time that is supposed to be observed, because he is trying to make reforms and cleanse the temple. That's that Solomon had built. So now, what was remarkable is that, okay, they got priests, they got a temple, and yet they wasn't able to do it because of the priest was defiled. Some Levites was defiled, and they had to purify everything, plus the place itself. So, and it's not strange to think about, because, and I want to bring out this point here as I'm going forward, is that we read in Exodus, we read already in the book of Exodus that Moses was told, Numbers, excuse me, in the book of Numbers, that Moses was told to tell the people to observe the Passover. We know those that, a little bit along, read the book a little bit more, know that that's the only Passover that you read about that they observed while they was in the wilderness. And when you observe the second Passover, that's your individual Passover. That's not for the whole nation. That's for you. And you bring the lamb in. Now, when it comes to the rest of the year, when Joshua entered the land, he entered the land on the 10th day of the same month that we're still in right now in the Hebrew calendar, which is month Abib or Nisan. And Passover is coming 4 days later. So he had to circumcise the people at that particular time. At that particular time, he had to circumcise and said the children of Israel, and it gave the reason. It said, all those born in the wilderness were not circumcised, except for Levites, of course, because it's only the men of war, the rest of the children of Israel. So excluding Levites. And you say, wow, the Creator told Moses directly to tell the people to observe the Passover, but only that one was observed. So it also brings out some other information that nobody that observed that first Passover was uncircumcised. So that means that for almost a year, either, right after that year, people stopped circumcising their children. Right after that year, for some reason. Or children just being born after that year. Because it said those that were born in the wilderness were not circumcised. So that means that it's either two viewpoints. Just a viewpoint I hold to. And that when they left Egypt, no woman had no children until after that first Passover, in order not to comply, unless she was Levite. Because it was a year later that they kept that second Passover, memorial of the one that they left. Now, Hezekiah took counsel, and he took counsel in order to say with his counselors and the priests to observe the second Passover in the second month. He sent letters to the various tribes. I just want to fast forward the story a little bit, not to be too long. He had already sent messages out for everybody to keep the Passover in the second month. But sometimes when you try to invite somebody, you can invite them in a bad way. His letter was, for those that want to go over it and read this whole chapter, the 29th and the 30th of Second Chronicles, I suggest that you'll find it very interesting. It's the way you ask and invite people to a particular service. When you it's a rebuke that's not seemly. A way you tell people about themselves. If you're telling them that in a way that it's going to uplift them, that's all well and good. If you're telling them to beat them down and make yourself feel better, then that's not good. So when you read the letter of Hezekiah, I let you judge for yourself the letters and what was stated, to the other tribes. But that's not my focal point today. And they wind up keeping it in the Passover in the second month. And they said Israel haven't done it for a long time. They read about another king, Josiah, who did great reforms and stuff like that nature. He sent to the prophets Huldah, and he was a repentant, which is another story, which I'm not going to focus on it today. Because we view him as good King Josiah. But it said there's none that turn after God with all his heart as King Josiah did. A repentant is one that turns and try to do right. Not one that was doing right, need to turn. It's one that wasn't doing right, need to turn. That's why I bring that out. So now my question, this one I want to leave out there before I get bring a conclusion to this talk, is that you have certain sacrifices, like to say the burnt offerings, sin offerings, and guilt offerings. All right, that's one thing. Then you have, sacrifices that is community sacrifices for the community. But, then you have a sacrifice of time. A time sacrifice is burnt offerings, the moedim in English, which means the appointed times. The appointed times being offerings that you got to bring on Shabbat that the priests deal with, which is more than what they do during the weekdays. But every day you got a certain offering that you got to offer up on that day, every day. Shabbat is double. On appointed times like Passover, like Shavuot, like Yom Teruah, what does it say, the day of blowing on the shofar, and you have Yom Kippur, then you have Sukkot, and then you have Shemini, which is the 8th day after the solemn assembly offerings. Those are time offerings. Now, the difference with the time offerings is a community offering. And when you bring in offerings of time, it's the community that contributes that. Now, Passover is a time offering, but it's the individual that bring it now. It's no longer the community. And now, at the temple, my question was, in theory, would you be able to offer up the Passover if the temple wasn't standing? And you have, I'm going to throw these things out. I just want to stimulate some thought and conversation out there and bring it to your various teachers and, colleagues, that if the temple is not standing, and as mentioned about the bricks earlier, and I mentioned about an altar should not be built, if you built me an altar, and that should not be built, of hewn stone. All right, we know that we had a specific altar that was built for the tabernacle. We had a specific altar built for the temple. But if a person does say, look, I'm going to make me an altar like Elijah did on Mount Carmel, and choose certain stones. All right. In theory, you got to say, okay, this guy brought his own from his own flock. All right. All you need to know was once the temple was set up and God caused name that dwell there. That you need to know where the actual altar, original altar was, where it actually stood on that very exact spot. And then you got to have a priest that could identify his lineage. And then, if he's a priest that could identify his lineage, is he clean enough to deal with the blood? Because you got the blood, because you got to be clean from the dead. So you got to be purified from the dead. The guy bringing it, long as you know, the guy that brings it, you know, the offering, you know, if he's applied, he could eat, and say like if a person gets back bringing it, he got to be clean by the dead, clean from the dead. But a person that eat of it, that's not unclean by the dead. But if he eat, you know, if he eat of it, he didn't bring it up. He's part of a household. We got a thing in the book where it said the clean and unclean shall eat alike. So I bring those variables out because a person's unclean, that don't mean he don't eat. And the Passover thing is presented by a household. So now if one of the household members, you know, is unclean, but the rest of the household, the ones that brought it up, was clean, then the one that was unclean, you know, by whatever reason, he could still eat of the Passover. And I'll give you a case in point. Say, you know, a woman having to be passed by, you know, and it had to be that cycle time, even childbearing or whatever the case is. So, but the sacrifice got to be offered up by somebody that is clean, and the priest got to prove his identity and plus be clean from the dead. And you must know where the actual altar was, because that once that spot was sanctified, that's the actual spot. Now in Israel today, they got guys studying to be priests. You know, we all those that do that studying and reading, that they got guys claim to be studying to be priests. They built up a lot of actual menorah. They got an actual gold, solid gold menorah that they got, and they got up, you know, from different commentaries and different studies. But I'm just saying, I just bring that out just to consider, because of the importance of the day. After the first temple was destroyed, those guys that were still around, that knew themselves to be priests, knew where the temple stood, knew where the altar was. Even once the temple was destroyed, they were still talking about bringing the Passover at least to that spot. We don't have a record of it ever being done, but it was discussion. It was a discussion on bringing a sacrifice for Passover on that spot, because the temple was just destroyed. A lot of people, you know, it wasn't unclean by the dead, you know, but they had to be sprinkled with the heifer, and priests knew themselves. But the question was, and those that knew themselves knew exactly where the altar was. So I would leave you with that, just to stimulate thoughts, not to change your viewpoints, but give you another point of view to explore. And I hope you got something out of it, and any mistakes by my own. And any questions on what I said, I'll try to address it the best I can. And if I can't, I just can't. With that, you know, to create a bit of glory, you have a good Shabbat Shalom, and an early good Shabbat Shalom, and Shalom Aleichem.
Hallelujah. Shalom Akah. Torah by Nasik. Thank you once again for your time and for your lesson. May the Most High God bless you and bless everyone out there listening. Shalom, shalom.